All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Even J podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about if skill is needed in Fate Origin. And just to really quickly go over what we do usually every week, we talk about anything new in Fate Origin. This week, there was an update, but all they did was lower the refresh time of the home boss. So, yeah, I think we're ready to just go ahead and start our main topic.
Alright. So as Eve mentioned, today's topic is about skill and
Mm-hmm.
if it is really needed, in Fate Origin. So why did we pick this topic, right? I mean, if you play the game, this is something you notice, and I guess this is something a lot of people have brought up. So I invited a couple of people, right, to start Fate Origin, and what they noticed, right off the bat is that when you start the game, a lot of things, seem automated. It's like your character
Yeah.
start moving by itself, and it kind of threw or confuse, a lot of people, right? But as you play the game, you notice, okay, that's it feels like that's just how most things, in the game are set up to operate, right? There's a lot of things, that are automated, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
and I guess it's to make uh, the game easier. I'm just speculating, right? For casual gamers, But then as you progress in the game, you start to notice a little bit more similarities like that, right? So if you take, maybe some your classical type of game, right? That focus, a lot more on skill. You'll notice that Fate Origin is not quite like that, right? Whether by design or accidental, right? It's a little bit different. So yeah, we just want to have a conversation, and maybe this might be targeted at seasoned gamers, right? By trade, because people who play a lot of games, can tell the difference right away after playing Fate Origin. So
Yep.
yeah, so we'll just gonna jump right in. So Eve, here's my question for you. Do you think, Fate Origin there's is a skilled, centric game?
No.
No. Okay, why?
um, Personally, I think it's hard to say that it could be. Well, I think it's hard to say that it is. I think anything could be if you give it the right, kind of circumstances. But in this case, with this kind of game where it is right now, I don't think that skill is necessary because, as you said, pretty much almost everything is kind of automated in this game. And I know, well, I'm pretty positive that they set that up on purpose, as you said, for, maybe people who aren't used to games. I know it was kind of shocking for me when I first started playing. I was like, why isn't my character stopping? How do I do this? Um, but I don't think there's skill necessary. I think that you could say that maybe planning, but I don't think skill is. Not unless they do more with the PvP scene.
Okay, yeah, that's definitely a good point. So, uh, I mean, before tackling this topic, right, I did a little bit of digging, Okay, if some of you don't know, Fate Origin is based, on another game. Well, it's I guess the play to earn version, right? Is based on a classical game,
Mm-hmm.
right? If you want to call it, that way, right? It's called Fate Oath, So it's kind of based on that game, right? So I dug a little bit in that game, to understand, is that game like different, from the play to earn, right, version that we have, and I noticed, they're fairly similar. I mean, except the earning aspect and the crypto aspect, right? That game is also automated, like this, right? And I read a few reviews, and actually it's pretty big in South Korea. And I found out, that it's mainly for casual gamers, right, who are on their phones, just going
Yeah.
about, right? So it's like you don't always want to keep, moving your character, and from that perspective, I understand, right? So your character is moving and doing things on your behalf, right? But you're just collecting items, So
Mm-hmm.
I haven't seen any game like this in the past. I guess at least an MMO, because I'm haven't really been, a big player of MMOs right now. So it was a little bit eye opening, So I guess as Eve was saying, I found out okay. this is, by design, right? Intentional, right? So, and sometimes I find that appealing, but other times, I wish, we could have more, right? So what do you think of that?
I think that's difficult because, as you said, this is clearly a mobile game. And
Hmm.
so it really makes sense that they would try to automate stuff as much as possible because it's more likely to appeal to more people who are not just gamers. And obviously that's the whole point, is to increase the chances of someone investing. And so the less amount of effort they have to put in is definitely better. So I don't think the likelihood of them making it any less automated is really there. Um, I think that where it's at right now is probably how it's going to stay. And it would be interesting to see, like, the more kind of serious gamers start to play, what they would suggest for the game. Because I know that there's been people, like I think us, for example, who suggested that maybe a desktop version would be nice. But I think right now where the game is, that's probably not plausible because they would have to change a lot of the mechanics of the game.
So while you were talking about, actually, I found out that the classical version has
Mm-hmm.
a desktop,
Interesting.
feature. So I'm thinking maybe it might be easier for them, to kind of spin or yeah, yeah. So based on that, but so if you look in the game in general, so what kind of activities do you find that you think, can maybe require a little bit more skill than usual? I mean, personally, the one I can think of, is what is it called, that the mecha race.
Mm-hmm.
Personally, that's
Yeah,
the one that
definitely.
interests. Yeah, and
Definitely.
and I remember, well, so here's a funny story. I remember when I told, Eve that the mecha race, is you're not actually playing against players, or you're playing against, bots, and AI, right? And I can, feel the disappointment, right? So, and I think, that's one activity, right, that could, definitely be, if it actually is, PvP, players against, not players against, an AI, right? I
Yeah.
think that would actually be really cool for one.
I agree with that. I think that would be really interesting too. I don't think there's many games that would or do have something implemented like that.
Hmm.
And I think a lot of players would maybe even just play the game specifically for that.
Hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Because other than that, I really can't think. I mean, maybe a little bit when you're in Guild War and there's real PvP, that could definitely have some skill because you really need to know um, your spells and everything, and know how to evade people and making the best decision on when to jump in to protect a node, or maybe just escaping is the better option. And so I think there is a little bit of skill there, but other than that, I can't really think of many other areas in the game other than where there's, actual PvP.
yeah. Yeah. I think, those are, the main two, right? That I can think of. And not just PvP, right? But like skills in general, something that requires you to maybe use, like without relying on the automated feature, right? Like
Yes.
use the controls, or use your fingers, or even use your brain, right? With
Yeah.
a little bit more, right? So I guess that's how, one could define skill, right? In this instance. So do you think so? Do you think Fate Origin as a play to earn, right? As it is set up right now, do you think being a game that is less reliant on skill, do you think this actually benefit, the play to earn ecosystem, right? As you know, a lot of people who are in play to earn right now, they're not really gamers, right? So do you think this
Mhm.
model is actually suitable, for this crowd?
Well, I mean, you got to look at other games too. There's a lot. another a lot of play to earn currently. And I mean,
Hmm.
if you look at Axie, I don't I don't think that there's really one way or the other to go. I think it just depends on what the actual goal of, the Fate Origin team for this game is. And I think that in a lot of ways right now it helps them, like I said earlier, to have things more automated because oops, my bad. Because it's easy for any kind of player, but I think they're also discounting the serious players who would put in a lot of effort if there was actual skill needed.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, personally, right, I think the game not being reliant on skill as much, actually benefit the ecosystem as it is right now. Because
Mm,
one thing I noticed is that, I mean, most people in the game, at least people who we met or play with, right, most of them were not gamers to begin with, right? So
right.
I remember, I don't know, I shared this conversation with you, right? Where I was talking to someone and I typed, AFK, right? And the person
Oh
didn't know what
yeah.
AFK meant, right? But I mean, regardless of where you are, if you're a gamer, right, you know what AFK means because, it means you've been in guilds, you've played a lot of online games, right? People have
Hmm.
typed that over and over again, right? So again, I'm not trying to make fun of the person, right? I'm just trying to explain,
Yeah.
just to make a point, right, about the reality. So I think if Fate Origin was like a really, really skilled, game, I don't know that it will attract, the crowd that it did. Of course, I guess if they're earning, they will still join regardless, right? But I guess the reality is that, maybe you and I, we're like the outliers, right? We're the exceptions, right? Because
Hmm.
you don't see a lot of actual gamers yet, in the play to earn on NFT, gaming ecosystem, right? Because either a lot of them think, NFTs are bad and I don't know. I don't know if you're if you've seen the recent meme God hates NFTs, it's currently trending and it's blowing up on OpenSea, but I
Right.
digress. But anyway, it's basically to show that okay, maybe this is actually good, right now that it's not, because you don't have real gamers or you don't have a lot of real gamers, that are actually trying these play to earns. So maybe it's actually better right now that it's not designed to be a game that focuses primarily on skill, right? But to make it easier, for your average investor, to get in quickly, right?
I agree with that, and I think that that is very true, and that's hard to discount. But I think at the same time, if you're thinking in the future, right, which, Fate Origin is not at its ultimate right now, but so if you think in the future where it could go and where the uh, play to earn community as a whole could go, and you consider that, what would that look like when serious or seasoned gamers actually were to get into the play to earn scene? What kind of games would they be more attracted to and be more likely to invest in? Would it be something that's super easy, they don't have to think about, and, they may lose interest in because it's so easy? Or would it be something that requires some like thought or skill even to really grab their attention and make them interested?
That is a really good point. I guess that's something I didn't think of, right? The future, right? Because, yeah, I say, right, I mean, things rarely stay, as they are, right? The entire NFT gaming space is definitely going to grow as well. It's not going to
Mhm.
stay as it is, today, right? So if the game is designed, as it is right now, right, is it going to appeal to the real gamers, right? Once I guess the space evolves, right? Is it gonna garner their attention? Are they gonna find the game fun, right? Because yeah, I guess going back to our first topic, that's like the ultimate goal, right? If you're gonna be playing a game, you want the game to be fun, right? You want to enjoy the game, and it's not to say Fate Origin is not fun, and I guess it goes to that aspect we're talking about how the game is designed, for casual gamers to be
Right.
enjoyable, and still, fun in its own perspective, right? But again, it doesn't really appeal to the hardcore gamer, that focuses on skill and, all those kind of things, right? So the future is definitely something, we have to consider, as you mentioned. Okay, if the game, stays like this in its current space, right? And let's say, and I don't know if you heard, but we know that Ubisoft is planning to launch its own play to earn NFT game it's soon. And I bet, it's probably going to take a couple of years, right? For them to have some type of AAA, a really good game, right? So if you take all those, into consideration, you have to wonder, okay, once all those great games, right, are out, will Fate Origin be able to compete, right, in its current space? I mean, do you think, Fate Origin can survive, in that ecosystem?
See, that's difficult because I think in the mobile game aspect, I think definitely. Um, but if you're thinking on the more serious term and what seasoned gamers would be interested in, I would say it would be okay, but I don't think it would really thrive. And I think that it comes down to, what we've kind of talked about before is the big differences between a play to earn MMO and an actual MMO. Um, and I think that that is something that seasoned gamers would pick up on very easily because in a lot of ways, if you think about it, Fate Origin with it being the mobile game that it is, it kind of feels like one of those mobile games that you can kind of like you can play a little bit, you have like some goals in the game, and some little things to do every day, but then once that's done you're kind of like, okay, that's it. Yeah, I don't need to do really anything else with this game, I can put it aside. But the goal of an full-fledged desktop MMO is it keeps you engaged all day long. You have so many different things to do that you know you're going to be there for a long time, possibly months to come. And it's the same way actually with almost any game, is there's so many things to achieve. There's so many different aspects of the game you want to, really have under your thumb and be great at. And it's hard with a mobile game or with Fate Origin in general, where it is right now, for it to be that way. And so I think it would be quite different to seasoned players.
I'm thinking, it could also just be an issue with content, right? Or
Hmm.
maybe lack of content, right? So
Yeah.
just if you think of it this way, right, okay, the game as it is, right now, okay, maybe as you say, right, and we had that discussion, a few days ago about how okay now we're getting more content, with the time rift, where you have more opportunities, and you also have the new boss
Home
home
boss.
dungeon, home boss. Yeah, I always say boss home. I don't. So the home boss, dungeon, right? Where you can play a little bit more, and so
Hmm.
I wonder, right, if more content, right, is added in the future, right, more activities and things for players to do, right, will it offset the skill offset? Because basically it'll just be a game that will keep you busy all the time. And also adding the play to earn uh, aspect of it, right?
Mm.
Because again, I guess that's also what makes it a little bit different. Again, as we know right now, no one's really making money, right? Because that's just the reality of the crypto and NFT space, right now. But okay, let's say in the future, right? Once we see a lot more games and whatnot, but the currency JoJo is a little bit more stable, and I mean, like JoJo used to be, right? Maybe you could be earning hundreds of dollars a day, instead of maybe the tens of dollars you earn right now because
Right.
of the price of the token, right? Do you think that will balance things out, right? Because again, as we know, even in the I mean the future, right? Even if you have good games that are fun and enjoyable, right? If maybe the content is not there's not a ton of content to keep people, even casual gamers, right? Because
Mhm.
I guess that's where I'm thinking of like the marriage between gaming and investing, right? You're gonna have both of the crowds, right? You'll have the gamers, you also have your casuals, right? So do you think, so here's my question. Do you think Pit Origin successfully balances, things out, right? Is there like a good middle ground there?
I think it has the potential to get there, but I
Mhm.
don't think it's there right now.
Okay.
Especially not in terms of content. I feel like they've done good, recently with Boss Home and Time Rift of adding new things, new kind of elements to the game that you can do every day, but I don't feel like that it's really content that keeps you engaged all day long. It's kind of just content that you do here and there. Um, to me, an MMO, which I understand this is a different kind of MMO, and play to earn is going to be probably massively different for a long time. But to me, an MMO has a storyline to it. It has um, actual content in their quests and their achievements, and that's something that we've talked about before as well. And so personally, I think they would need a lot more in the game to keep people interested. I also think that they would need the game to be on another platform for players to be continually interested, because I don't think most players would play, seasoned players would play Fate Origin on their phone or on BlueStacks.
Yeah, that's definitely true. So yeah, again, maybe in the future, right, just like the classic version, the Web 2 version, maybe the Web 3 will also have a PC or desktop version for players. But again, that's to be seen. So I do wonder, right? As I say, so let's say, with that, if you take the current in-game activities, right? The activities we have right now, whether it's PK, and so if you could maybe redesign some of these activities, right? So which, how can you, let's say PK, right? Okay, how would you redesign PK to make it, a little more skill centric, right? Let's say to appease to the real gamer in you.
I would make it more like Guild War, but I would make the setting different, so it's obviously just a one-on-one, but it would be more like, instead of you're automatically fighting sort of an AI version of a player, you're fighting the actual player. And I would make it so that there's a queue you have to join in order to fight another player. Because I think that having it the way that they currently do, although, yes, you are fighting the actual player in a sense because it's at their level and it has, the gear and stuff that they do, it's still not the actual player, and everything is automated. So there's absolutely nothing needed when it comes to, um, you know, PvP skill or really kind of anything along those lines. The only place you really have in the game to practice any kind of PvP skill, I would say, is really just in Guild Wars.
And I think one something else that could be good, maybe for just PK, for it to be, I mean, really based on skill, right? Would be to maybe remove the CP component. And I know we touched on that a little bit in our previous
Mm-hmm.
podcast when we talked about CP and also level, a little bit because, as you know, right now, right, CP is king, right? In the game, CP determines everything. And I guess in PvE, right, against monsters and bosses, right, that's good, right? But I think it should be maybe scaled back a little bit when you're doing PvP activities. Again, I'm not talking about some of the dungeons and stuff, but I mean actual PK, like PK, right? If maybe they could forget about CP completely in PK, right? So when you're fighting other players, your CP doesn't matter, but the way you use your skills, so I guess they'll have to think of it, right? How, the way you click those skills or how you set them up will, or how you dodge, right? Even right, could determine the outcome of the fight, right? I think that would be really cool, right? Because I mean, if you're just gonna fight, someone with gazillion CP more than you, I mean, you're bound to lose regardless, right? So I think I think it'll be good, to maybe remove the CP element right out of a PvP to
Mhm.
make it, truly skill centric activity, right? What do you think?
I think that's an interesting idea. Um, I don't know if that is the route that I would personally go if I was, you know, thinking about the future of Fate Origin and adding more of a skill level. Because for one thing, we only have so many skills, and the female skills are different from the male skills in terms of what they're called and stuff. And then, you take into fact that everyone has mecha. So, they would have to figure out the mecha as well. Um, I don't think having or taking out the CP aspect would be the best idea to foster better PvP or skill. I think what would probably be better is if they sectioned people into ranks. I think we kind of touched on that last time because I think that way those who are in a certain rank would only go against their own rank in order to rank up. So that way you wouldn't have people who are, like you said, gazillion times higher than someone else. Um, that way, too, it creates a good competitive spirit. You're in a way you're kind of helping each other rank up, but at the same time you want to outrank them, so you need to develop your own skills in order to beat the next person. It also kind of encourages you to pay attention to how other players actually do play the game, or it encourages you to invest more in the game so you can do better with your gear and stuff. And then that kind of brings in a whole different aspect of investing in Fate Origin as well.
hmm Yeah, I guess the investment aspect, right? Because again, as we know, it's still a place you earn, right? We want people to invest, right? We want money to play a
Mm-hmm.
certain part, in your success, right? But I was just thinking, right, in general, and I know I reference, Destiny 2 a lot, right? Because to me, it's one of the best designed game ever, and also it's an MMO, but it's really focused on PvP, right? And in Destiny 2,
Mm-hmm.
for example, the PvP aspect, there's no, even though okay, players have a power level, right? And your power level will make it easier for you to kill a boss, right? For example, but once you enter like the PvP arena, everybody's the same, right? So even though there are like different characters, of different classes, right? Like we have male and females here, right, with different types of skills, right? Even then,
Mm-hmm.
you determine by picking your character, right? You can determine how to use, the features and skills of that character to your advantage, right? And the game is so balanced a certain way that okay, it's depending on how you move, depending on how you play, that's gonna determine the outcome, right? And of course, that one's also a shooter game, right? So it's a little bit different, in that aspect as well, right? But eh, going back to that, I think if there was like a certain like arena mode, and I guess that could be maybe an entire separate mode by itself, right? It could be where even if you okay, you have the regular PK where there are different classes, right? As you say, right? There could be another mode, where CP doesn't matter, right? It's like everybody will just be the same, right? And the outcome of the battle, right, will be based on how well you use your skills, how well you move, how well you play,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I mean, personally, I think I would love to see something like that, right? Okay.
I think it's hard personally for me to get past the MMO aspect of the game, because in my head, I keep wanting to associate it with how a regular desktop MMO would function or run their PvP, for example. Um, and what I'm used to the most is that your character does have its own, power level. It has its own actual level and everything like that. But when it comes to PvP, it's completely different, and you have more opportunity to grow in your PvP too because you have so many skills that you can utilize and learn how well they interact with each other. And knowing your skills is how you win any kind of match in PvP. um, and to me, with Fate Origin, there's just not a lot there because you only have 6 skills, not including mecha, actually 7, I guess. um, and really, if you think about it, only 4 of them are situational skills. So, like a stun or um, the healing, those are situational. You wouldn't use them all the time. And then you have 3 skills that are AoEs. And so it doesn't really have this need to actually learn in depth what your skills do or how often they do it, because there's not really anything to learn there. And most of it is, I mean, it can be automated. You can turn that off though, but it's just so easy. It's almost too easy. So then in PvP, it's like the same rotation over and over. You might stun someone or decide not to because it's on cooldown. You might pop your heal now or wait until later. But if someone pops their mecha, you have to pop your heal or you have to pop your mecha. There's not a whole lot of like various circumstances. There's really only one or two. So there's not a whole lot of need to focus on having a certain skill set when it comes to actually using your skills, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I do get what you mean. So I was looking earlier. I was looking at some of the passive skills. If you go on the under the skill button where you have the active, passive, and also even some of the talents, right? And I was thinking, but I guess this will take a lot more work to design, right? Because
Hmm.
I was thinking even some of those passive skills, if I mean, if adapted right, they could become active skills, right? That could add, to the rest, right? But then it dawned on me that the game in its entirety was designed to be an automated game, right? To be
Yeah.
a game that you can play without worrying about your skill combination and all of that, right? So even the other passive skills, are designed, to be I don't know, to work, in the way the game was designed, right?
Hmm.
So yeah, I'm thinking, yeah, I'm thinking, that's kind of the problem, right? Because even if I guess in my mindset, in my vision of what I will expect PvP to be, I guess they'll also need, to change the skills, as they are right now, right? Because as you say, right, it's not that there aren't a lot of skills, but it's just that they're designed to work in an automated way, right? So you don't
Right.
really, need them in a sense. I mean, I guess the only one I can really think of, right, will be the demonic shield. I know it's a different name, for female characters, but it was the one I used, when I was playing the Tower Judgment, right? That you can
Right.
activate and kind of just disable the player for a few minutes. And going back to that, a lot of the skills, even passive ones, right, are meant to work on bosses, right? You have, I don't know, for every 5 skill, 4 of them are to against world bosses, right?
Hmm.
So I guess the skills themselves, are not designed to focus on PvP, right? They're designed, for a PvE, environment.
Yeah, that's very true. That's exactly what I was kind of thinking too. Is the more we talk about how skill could be utilized in Fate Origin, it's hard because in a lot of ways it feels like they'd have to completely redesign a lot of things, and the likelihood of that happening and how that would affect the game or the players, especially players who've been already playing for a long time or certain or sorry, are used to playing a certain way, that could be really difficult on the community as a whole. And, that would take a lot of planning on the team's part, is being able to release that in a way that keeps everyone happy, but, is also something fresh and new for players who might want more of a challenge in PvP. That could be really challenging.
Okay, that's a good one. So I guess I because again the way the game is intended to be played, right? I guess maybe one of the changes that could be made is maybe to just add a ton and ton of content, right? So I'm thinking,
Hmm.
right? Okay, if the game is meant to be this way, right? Okay, so usually you do your daily activities, right? You do your daily quests, and then you do some of the dungeons, and stuff, right? So I'm thinking maybe in addition to what we already have, maybe they should just add a ton more content, right? So instead of a skill, it'll just be a game that keeps you busy, right? That where you just have a lot of things to do. There's always something to do. So in a sense, you don't run out of things to do, right? And I guess it will really work, right, with the play to earn aspect, right? Because you just want to keep people to keep playing, doing something, that, yeah, and I also think it takes a certain personality of people that love MMOs, right? Even if it's not really skill based, but something they keep doing, right? They keep growing, they keep grinding. Yeah, I think that's the word I was using. People just keep grinding, all the content that is there. What do you think?
I agree with that. I think that it could really use a lot of extra work, even with the content that we currently have. Personally, I would like to see, and this is just my own opinion, I would like to see more of a storyline with the quests that they do, because right now, to me, doing it every day, it's kind of just it's just a thing you have to do. It doesn't have me interested. I'm not like curious about what the next day is going to bring, and I believe it's always the same thing, because it's even called a loop quest. Um and so to me, I think they could put more effort in there, and I think they could just put a lot more in general, but I think if they're going to do that, it needs to be actual quality content. Not that anything right now isn't quality content, but it needs to have more like substance, I guess, to me.
Absolutely, I agree with that. And one of the things that makes a lot of games, really good and fun and enjoyable is the storyline behind them, right? The
Yeah,
lore you have. I mean, if you go all the way back to the Super Mario game, right? In that, the ultimate goal is to slay the dragon, and save
exactly.
the princess, right? And if you look at any game, right, having that storyline, right? So when you reach certain milestones, right, an achievement, by having a lore, or a story, behind every quest, right, it makes you relate, associate the content with the achievement, right? So yeah, I think,
Hmm.
maybe developing the storyline a little bit more, right? Okay, for example, right, okay, right now we're uh, fighting against these monsters, in the open world, right? Okay,
Hmm.
what are these monsters, right? Why are we fighting them, right? What's their story, right? So I think, if we have, as you mentioned, right, a backstory, like that, I think it'll definitely keep people more engaged.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I think that having a storyline or lore in general is so important, because everyone wants to know what they're doing it for. And, you also then have the chance of players who are totally invested in that story, and you know, uh, they want to get like commissions of things. And so then it helps spread the word of Fate Origin. And the more people are excited about lore or a story, which is the whole reason behind, television shows and movies and stuff, people just go crazy for that. I mean, sometimes it's all that they think about, because they want to know what's going to happen next. And that's really exciting. And so I think that they're um, really kind of missing out right now. They could do a lot more in that area.
Yeah, absolutely, I agree. And I hope maybe all this, comes in the future, right? As
Oh,
the
yeah.
game itself, grows, as the community grows, and the reality is that, this is just going to happen only if the play to earn aspect succeeds, right? Because
Right.
again, the reality is that a lot of real gamers are not going to join Fate Origin right now just to play a fun game, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because as I was saying earlier, right, casual gamers, that are not into NFTs or crypto, they just play the Fate of, the original version that was released. That's currently, again, it's really big in Korea from what I saw, right? That's there, they'll just play that, right? So I think, for Fate Origin to reach that stage, it'll definitely need to be successful as a crypto, right? As a crypto game, right? Where okay, the earning is great, people keep joining and making money, right? The in-game economy items, will keep getting traded, so you'll have a bustling, community and economy. And then, I guess my hope is that, once it gets that funding, that status and recognition, wildly, then, maybe the game will see a little bit more. Again, that's just, my personal hope right now. So here's a liberal maybe a question, but so we're kind of determined, okay, Fit Origin is not really a skilled, centric game, right? So, but
Right.
it's still a fun game. It's in on right. So what do you think, how do you think the dev should proceed in its current state, right? Not in the distant future, right? How do you think the dev should proceed, as the game is right now, to keep players engaged, to keep them playing and having fun, right? Without any major big plans, for the future, also considering our current recession.
I really stand by kind of what we talked about either last stream or the one before that, sorry, podcast. That I think that they should really work on what they already have right now and work on improving it.
Mhm.
But I think it wouldn't hurt to throw in something completely new because if you think about it, we kind of already have the whole boss situation, down. We've got the bosses we had originally when we started with, F1 through F9 or something. And then we had, pet bosses, and then they added Time Rift, and now we have the boss home. We've got so many boss options. I really think that they could do more with like an actual dungeon rather than going into another area to kill more bosses. Um, and especially if it was something that would eventually have to do with the storyline, I think that would be fantastic. But that's just my opinion. What do you think?
Okay, yeah, I agree with that. And and I'm not sure if maybe the limited content we have right now is bad design, to slowly bring people in. Again, I was talking about the classic or the Web 2 version that's currently available in Korea called Fate Oath, right? And I
Hmm.
saw that it has more character, right? Not just the male and female. It has, more classes. It has more mounts. More, yeah. So it has a ton more. So I think with the current Fate Origin version, maybe they're only cracking maybe a third of the content, right? That the original game has. So I don't know if maybe the plan is to slowly roll. All these out, to our version as well. So I think,
Yeah.
if they do that, I don't know, maybe it still might not. And again, I don't know if the original one has a storyline and all that, right? I
Right.
haven't dug that deep into it, but I think, if they just, like dangle all this content, right, like a shiny object in front of players, I think, it might sustain the game a little bit longer, until maybe the market changes, right? Like again, they release, the home boss, dungeon, right? If they can keep releasing, more content, and as you said, and if there's a storyline, that would also definitely benefit, the game as well, right? So
Yeah.
I think if they can continue doing a little bit more of that, right, that will keep players engaged, even if it's not a skill centric game, right? So I
Yeah.
was also thinking of something else about how we talked about PK and also the mecha race, right? About how okay, maybe those could be made, change, to have like a matchmaking, against other players, right? But then I
Mhm.
was just thinking, okay, do we have enough players right now, right, in the game to do that, right? So I'm wondering, right? Maybe it is this way right now because we don't have a ton of players, for a matchmaking activity? Or what do you think?
Yeah, that could definitely be true. Especially, literally right now, I don't think they would be able to do that at all. I think people would be waiting in a queue for a long time. Um, Especially if they only have so many entries, then eventually there's going to be someone who can't enter because there's no one to do mecha against. Um, so that could be very true. Maybe they just did that to start out and eventually they plan to, have us actually be able to race against each other. That would be really cool.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I guess, this is just something we're just gonna have to wait and see, right?
Yeah.
Because again, as we're saying, play to earn game relies a lot on crypto, right? So if crypto
Mm.
is tanking, the game probably won't reach its full potential, right? Just to put it that way. So I think, for the game to actually grow and to really succeed, right? We will need, for the crypto aspect, the other half of it, right? Or even which is maybe the bigger half, even, right? The crypto aspect should be successful, and then the rest, should come hopefully. So yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think
All right.
that's pretty much the end of our topic.
Yeah, I don't know. So yeah, I think we touched on all the points, all the big points, So I mean, if you're in the chat or anything you want to add, that would be cool to bring up, or or if you're just watching later, you have some comments,
Hmm.
always let us know, and we can definitely touch base on that. So yeah,
Yep. So
uh,
thank you guys so much for coming to our talk, either now or later, whichever is cool. Um,
mhm.
Make sure to follow us on Twitter at EvenJ Podcast. Make sure to subscribe here so you can get, you know, notified when we release stuff. We'll have a video out this week, and we'll see you guys next time. Have a good night.
And before you head out, remember Guild Wars is today, so it's gonna be in about
Right.
7 hours or 7 hours and 15 minutes, or yeah, so yeah, 6 hours and 15 minutes. So yeah, make sure to play and have fun. All right, yeah, bye, and have a good night.
Bye.